Hello and welcome back to
Okay.
the official Radio Caroline YouTube channel. Josh Holmes-Bright here with another very special guest for you. Today, we're joined by Simon Stabler, who's involved with Best of British magazine, who you'll have heard mentioned on Radio Caroline many a times. Hello, Simon. How are you doing?
Hello, Josh. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting Caroline as well with the
Not a
advertising run you're
problem.
doing. Very, very much appreciated. Now, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself, how you got involved with the magazine and what it is you do there.
Yeah, I'm Simon Stabler, the editor of Best of British, which is the UK's premier nostalgia magazine. I've been working on the mag for, it'll be 13 years in May.
Wow.
I've been editor for coming up for 10, and it is a labour of love. I absolutely love the contents, as you might have seen if you've seen a March issue. We've got our anniversary for Radio Caroline's 60th anniversary.
Mhm.
Caroline North on there. Um,
Fantastic.
and yeah, we've got in the latest issue, we've got a bit about cigarette cards going around the London Cigarette Card Company, who've got thousands of classic cards, classic albums, and stuff that very easy and cheap to collect. So it tells you how to get started in the hobby. We've got an interview with John Lloyd, the chap who produced Blackadder, Spitting Image, and stuff like that. We were actually talking to him about his radio days because he started off from university. He went on to be a trainee producer at the Beeb,
Oh, okay.
creating the news quiz and a few other programs. So that was interesting, and he grew up in Essex, I believe, and he really liked his days in radio. He wasn't expecting to. He wanted to be a writer, and they said, "Why don't you produce?" And labour of love. He went onto TV and all that. So it's always nice when you find people who enjoy your work, as I'm sure you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a nice feeling. Have you always had a passion for kind of nostalgia and the kind of British history that you include in the magazine? Has that always been something
Yeah,
you're interested in?
maybe a little bit of nostalgia. I remember going to my granny's house, and it seemed slightly, off kilter with the modern world as we were getting our central heating and stuff like that. She still had the coal fire, and
Yeah.
there's many attempts of throwing stuff on the fire, crisp packets and stuff that you shouldn't really do. I'm a massive Doctor Who fan as well. Actually, I've got
Okay.
the T-shirt on today,
Very nice.
and so I got in with the end days of Tom Baker, but reading Doctor Who magazine, I became interested in the archives. There was a chap called Andrew Pixley who did an archive piece. He did facts about the making of the program as well as the storyline and all that. And that gave me an interest in classic TV because it had mentioned stuff like Z Cars, Dixon and Doc Green, and all that.
Hmm.
Um, and the Beatles, of course, I was 1987. It was the 20th anniversary of Sergeant Pepper, and I can remember going into school that day with a tape my dad had copied from his vinyl copy of Sergeant Pepper, and we ended up listening to it in the class. And it's weird to think that was 20 years since the album was released, because it's
Yeah.
like 56. Is it?
Yeah,
It's
I think 56 years is right. Yeah.
57. Yeah, 56 coming up 57 or something like that. No, yes. Sorry, a bit of maths
Yeah.
there.
I think you're right.
You know,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
67. So yeah, it'll be coming up for 57 years this year, won't it?
Yeah, that's
You know,
fantastic. I mean,
um,
the Beatles are hard to
yeah. So
escape
I'm
when it
in
comes to.
that. I think they're probably one of the best bands we've ever had. I mean, I love the Clash and the Pistols, Paul, the Brit pop stuff. That was more my era, going dancing to Common People and stuff.
Hmm.
But when I was at school, I was into new wave and stuff like that. But yeah, the Beatles. It's people sometimes think, oh, they're just a rock band, they're just a pop band or whatever. The amount of revolutions they had in their music.
Yeah.
You listen to Tomorrow Never Knows. Is it Tomorrow Never Knows? And you think that's the Chemical Brothers. They were
Right.
doing big beat, 20, 30 years before.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
Legends. It doesn't even
I
begin to sum it
just
up.
wonder if they were still going. What would they be? Would they have gone down the tribute route, or would they just be? I don't know what the youth of today are
Well,
into, but would they
yeah.
be going for
The Beatles doing hip
that?
hop. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I'm sure it's not a million miles. I'm sure you'll find something on one of their albums which has a bit of a precursor to hip hop.
True.
Yeah.
That's very true. And now we mentioned the issue that's out actually right now, that the one featuring Caroline. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But some of the features you've done in the past, what are some of the highlights you've had the pleasure of editing?
Well, as a Doctor Who fan, I interviewed Janet Fielding, who was Tegan in Doctor Who in the days of Peter Davison. I did that for the November issue, which was the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. She had, of course, appeared in the 20th anniversary special, which I watched at the time and think, where are those 40 years gone? Interviewed Ian Ogilvy, Return of the Saint, and some really good cult horrors of the 60s, like The Sorcerers and Witchfinder General.
Okay.
Annette Andre, who played Jeannie Hopkirk in Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, which is another one of my favourite shows.
Brilliant.
Especially that theme tune. I love that. And yeah, I've been really lucky to speak to people, who in a way I consider them a hero, or someone I've admired. And it's nice that I've got to do stuff. And sometimes it's interviewing people that you just want to know about.
Yeah.
Last year it was the anniversary of Thora Hurd's death. I think it was a 25th anniversary or something. So we did a feature on her, but I thought I'd love to interview the girl who played her daughter, the woman who played her daughter in Last of the Summer Wine, Sarah Thomas, who played Glenda. And that was interesting. And when you talk to these people, their whole, people they work with, like Sarah had worked with Joan Hickson, Annette Andre, as well as Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. She did a few episodes of The Saint. Roger Moore, so she told me stories of that. Sanjeev Bhaskar, I interviewed him a couple of years back. He became good friends with Roger Moore towards the end of his life, end of Roger Moore's life. He'd grown up watching The Saint, and that was just, it's amazing, But we had Barry Cryer was a big fan of the magazine, the comedian Barry Cryer.
All right.
And he'd pretty much worked with everyone. When he started, he worked with Max Miller, the great comedian.
Wow.
And he linked the old world of comedy, variety, music hall, through the 70s, through the 80s, alternative comedy, and whatever you call today's comedy, because it is kind of the offspring of alternative comedy, but it is mainstream comedy. So he was a great bloke to talk to. And I'd sit there and I'd mention something. And he'd go, "Oh, met him." He was telling me stories of going to visit J.B. Priestley, having a run-in with Keith Moon when he was down the pub.
As you do.
And it was just amazing. And he was like an encyclopedia of comedy or faces.
Yeah.
And I miss that. There's a time when I think of something, I think Baz will know. And I can't get on the phone and ask him now. It's because we once did a thing, because he was friends with Bernard Cribbins, who he got me an interview with Cribbins, which was really great. And they were talking about BC, Barry Cryer, Bernard Cribbins. He went, "We need a female for the group." And I said, "What about Belinda Carlisle?" Perfect. And I'd forgot that Belinda Carlisle's father-in-law was James Mason, who was from up Yorkshire way, where Baz was. And I just wish I'd said to him, "Baz, did you ever meet James Mason?" And I'm sure he did, and he'd probably have an anecdote or two about that.
Of course. Oh, that's brilliant. I see. It's nice to meet some of your heroes. It must be quite a rewarding job. But going right up to the most recent issue, which is out now, featuring Radio Caroline. I mean, I obviously know the answer to it, but I'll ask you anyway. Do you think that Radio Caroline might have a bit of an impact, or might have had a bit of an impact on British culture back in the day? Just a slight impact, maybe?
Definitely. I mean, you'd have no Radio 1 if it wasn't for Caroline. There was various attempts made to kind of quell the influence of Luxembourg. But as I say in my intro, it was a proper broadcasting revolution. And Caroline is something. It's a name. I know you've had a few ups and downs in the years, but I'm glad you've sailing a steady course, to use a nautical term.
Absolutely.
It's great. It should be cherished. And if it wasn't for Caroline, there wouldn't be a lot, there wouldn't be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then everything else, all the digital channels, 5, of course, for your sport, and that's all down to the influence of Caroline and the commercials as well.
Absolutely.
Not that all the commercials are doing it right, I don't think. I think they're missing a trick or two.
No comment. No comment. But so in the issue, as part of the celebration of Caroline's 60th, you spoke to our station manager, Peter Moore. Is that right?
Well, Peter wrote it. Yeah,
he wrote it, right?
Paula, who I speak to, she went, "Oh, Peter would love to write something." Yeah,
right. Okay.
Send it over, and I'd kind of sometimes I have more articles than I can, I've got space for, and it's like I'd love to use this, and then it's like I'm going to have to hold on for it for 2 years because it deserves, the 60th anniversary special. It deserves to be on the front of the magazine. Everything in there. We've got Colin Baker as a columnist, the Doctor Who thing as well, and he was saying how much he loved Caroline, or loves it. He grew up listening to it in the 60s as well on Radio 1, and he like I do, kicking myself, having been a friend of Barry Cry's. He kicks himself that he's friends with Tony Blackburn.
Oh right, okay.
Who was one of your DJs. So yeah, it was definitely an anniversary that needed to be celebrated.
Absolutely.
It was nice that we had that article on the shelf to, get in there in time.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, what other features are in the issue? You mentioned a few earlier on, but what else is there alongside Caroline in the edition?
Yeah, we've got the Stranglers. They're going. It's their 50th anniversary this year.
Oh, okay.
And there's a tour which kicks off. I think it's the 8th of March in Glasgow. You'll have to look up.
Yeah.
But someone who's a fan of the Stranglers back in the late 70s has done a feature on that. We've also got an interview with the Hovis boy, Carl Barlow, who was the original Hovis boy going up that hill in Dorset. People always think it's Yorkshire, but it's Dorset. And he was a fireman for 30 years after all that. So we've got a photo of him in his uniform as well, and a photo of him in the original advert and going up the hill now, as be in his 60s now, I guess.
Yeah.
He's still fond of it. We've got about Bow Manor Hall, which is in Leicestershire. It was Bletchley's other half. Basically, the different centres didn't know about each other, but they got the messages that were then taken to Bletchley for decoding. And there's a story about that. And the Great Tapestry of Scotland, which is an interesting thing up in Gallus Shields, where they've got all these panels. People have done embroidery, and it's an embroidery. Like the Bayeux Tapestry is actually an embroidery, as I discovered. Because tapestries, you make it like a carpet. It's all the wall put together. Embroidery is where you put it on. So even though it's called a tapestry, it's actually an embroidery.
I see.
And that's got the history of Scotland, and it's even got Tunnock's tea cakes and iron brew on one of the panels as well. So that's interesting. So there's all sorts of things, there's a bit of music, a bit of TV, a bit of, because we have past and present at the top, because, as well as being a nostalgia magazine, people still do things from, traditional methods.
Yeah.
People make baskets, beer's still brewed in a traditional method in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So there is stuff that is present that we cover because it's the traditional way.
Definitely. Yeah. It's amazing. It sounds like a great issue packed with all sorts of fantastic stuff. But of course, Caroline
it's hard work. It's hard work, but when that comes through the door, I'm like, and I'm impressed with this because we've just changed printers, and it's better quality paper, better printing. It just looks so beautiful.
Yeah, you must feel so. Well, no. I was going to say you must feel so proud when the issue is kind of complete and you can hold it in your hand and say, as a team, we've worked on this. We've managed to make this real. It must feel nice.
Definitely.
Brilliant. So obviously,
we've got a small team. Editorially, it's just me and John, who's my sub-editor. So hello, John. I wouldn't be without him because he gets stuff knocked into shape, then I do all the bits over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it works well.
Great.
People love it, and the
Yeah.
more people who know about it, even better.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, to find any issue, but obviously this issue in particular, you'll be able to see it on the shelves with the Caroline North ship up on the front and all of the headlines.
That's
But
right.
how can people get hold of it, either in shops
Yeah,
or all across online and all
yeah,
that?
yeah. So you've got it in places like Smiths, local news agents as well. And then you can also get it from the website. If you go to mortons.co.uk, there's a way of clicking to buy it that way, or taking out a subscription.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well,
Brilliant.
yeah, whatever way you want to get it. I believe it's also on Press Reader if you're in a library, so you could read it online if that's your thing, or
Awesome.
Readly. So
Brilliant.
there are many different ways.
Lots of ways to get hold of the copy. Thank
Yeah,
you very much
exactly.
for featuring us, for featuring Radio Caroline, and your
Not
support
a
with
problem.
the advertising too.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Excellent. No, thank you. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your stories as well. It's a very interesting chat. And
Yeah.
well, we'll make sure we get a few more people picking up that Caroline edition, which is out now.
And likewise, and of course, you've got the advert in the back. So if more people tune in,
Of course. Yeah.
and the feature as well. So yeah, the boat that rocks.
Amazing.
In the present.
It does. It still does. 60 years on. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much for your time, and have a good evening.
Right.